Hey there, witches and warlocks. So I've got a bone to pick with a certain character from Charmed who the writers did a great disservice to. This is Cole Turner himself, who suffered unfortunately from a very bad case of poor writing, lazy writing, and neglect, not only from the Charmed ones, but the writers themselves. It was like they completely missed the mark, and it was very much a failed anti-hero journey. It was also a huge case of emotional whiplash for the audience that misfired massively. But how did they mess up? Especially if any of you haven't seen this show before and have no idea what I'm talking about. I want to dissect what went wrong. So stick around as I unpack how Cole Turner was demonized, pun intended, and ultimately done dirty by the writers. So this video is going to be broken down into a few different topics. I've got a lot of notes. So we're going to talk about the different phases of Cole's journey, from demonic lover to outlaw to fully redeemed mortal human, back to being evil and possessed by the source and his ultimate demise. Even saying that aloud, it's clear how this show was such a roller coaster. It just sounds ridiculous, and I don't really appreciate how the show kept flip-flopping between making him good and making him bad. It got very, very exhausting. This year it's the 25th anniversary of the show. Cole was one of my favorite, most iconic characters, and this show is very close to my heart, so it just seemed like the perfect time to cover this. I also want to say, before any of you come at me in the comments being sad, I love this show. That's why I'm being nitpicky, because they truly had a gold mine when it came to Cole, and I don't think they quite realized. So let's start with season 3, when we first meet Cole. From day one, his relationship with Phoebe, his love interest, is built on lies and manipulation, because he is an assassin that has been required to kill her, and he knows this. So he's lying to her from the start about who he is and what his intentions are, which is obviously not a great start. And many people who don't like Cole's character claim that it was romanticizing an abusive relationship, and that he displays all the red flags of someone that would eventually become violent towards their partner, and that's just basically not a good message to send, especially because he's, as some people have labeled it, grooming her, or he had all this information about her and was using it against her, etc., stalking her. All of which is true. And regardless of whether Cole is overtaken by his demon side or whether he's possessed, he is still someone that inflicts abuse on Phoebe, whether we like to look at it that way or we don't. It is true. The reason though why I still liked these two as a couple is because, to me, Charmed is a fictional show set in a fictional world of magic and demons and good versus evil, and so it wasn't really the same to me as a normal teen drama where no magic is involved, especially with these fictional rules in the universe of demons and warlocks not liking witches and that rivalry between them. Phoebe and Cole are on opposing sides, both of whom believing that they're doing the right thing. So I am acknowledging that their dynamic was inherently messed up to start with, but for me it never really felt like it was romanticizing abuse, because again, it's kind of hard to take seriously. It's like he's literally half demon, you know, it's not really meant to be realistic. But when we meet Cole, we don't know that he's half demon. He just seems like a normal guy who's trying to prove a murderer guilty and is using the Charmed ones as eyewitnesses, and that's how he meets Phoebe. She doesn't know that he planned on meeting her. They have this instant flirty banter. She sees how well he tries to fight for their case in court, and she just likes him. But there are immediate red flags that are revealed to the audience and not to Phoebe initially, like for example how the Charmed ones freeze everyone in the courtroom using their magic. Obviously Cole should freeze if he's a mortal human, but he doesn't. He only pretends to freeze and then moves around later when the girls aren't looking. So he was in on their plan. He was 3 steps ahead, And they don't know this, so they think he's frozen like everybody else. We also see him get weirdly physically aggressive with the murderer, and there are just signs there that he's not all he appears. We see that he has a shadow which moves and follows his orders, and he later on tells the triad that he found a way in to the Halliwell manor, which is by using Phoebe. He sees her as a weak link, he sees their chemistry, and he thinks, great, I can get close to her and find out more information about how to destroy the girls. So he asks her out fully with the intention of breaking into the house to steal the Book of Shadows. We know he's a demon, and he goes by Cole here, but his real name is Balthazar, and we see these other demons referring to him as having a nice costume. But there are also signs that despite him and Phoebe being on opposing sides and him being a traitor, that they're meant to be together. For example, when Phoebe goes back in time and a fortune teller person says to her that the initial of her true love's name starts with a C. And Cole is just as shocked by this information as Phoebe is. And throughout the show, as the episodes go on, we see that he's struggling with this task he's being forced to do compared to his actual feelings for Phoebe. At one point, he tries to stop seeing her because he feels like it's weird because he's been assigned to kill her and he's suffering from a guilty conscience. And my favorite quote actually from this show is when he says, "I was dead before I met you. I was born the day you loved me, and my love for you will keep me alive forever." Aww. So the idea is that Phoebe awakened Cole's human side, the other 50% of him that he's in touch with, a side of him that he long thought had died, that didn't exist. In episode 5 of season 3, we know that Cole really wants to kill the girls himself, and he doesn't want anyone else stealing the glory, because saying that you killed the charmed ones is quite possibly one of the biggest things you could ever accomplish. So he wants to do it himself, and he wants to do it right. But when he breaks into the attic, he actually gets caught in Prue's demon trap. And of course, Prue is suspicious of him, like she's suspicious of everyone, because they have to be. Half of their exes have been demons who are betraying them. Like, it's not that complicated. But Phoebe is really offended. And that's something I will talk about later if you're interested. So stay tuned about how Cole affected Phoebe and why a lot of people actually didn't really like her character anymore because of the way that she behaved around Cole and kind of made it all about Cole. But Phoebe's like, oh my God, Prue, what's wrong with you? Obviously, Cole isn't a demon, even though he's weirdly in our attic for no reason. The thing is, at this point, they know that someone's after them, someone called Balthazar, but they're looking for this red-faced demon, not for Cole, you know? They weren't expecting for someone to be half demon, half human, because that's very unusual and unexpected. In episode 6, Prue develops these empath, kind of psychic, intuitive feeling abilities. And when she sees Phoebe and Cole interacting, Prue says that she felt like she was slipping into infinity and that she hadn't felt like that since Andy was alive. So she feels like Cole is falling in love with Phoebe for real. So she's basically saying, with my magic, I can tell that Cole truly loves you. This to me was proof that Cole's feelings for Phoebe were never faked, and they were real. He genuinely felt himself falling in love with her. And this gives Phoebe the motivation to come and find Cole later and start kissing him, because she knows that even though he's being weird and is pulling away from her, and she doesn't know why, his feelings for her are genuine. And he finds it very hard to resist. When she comes to find him, he's like, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. So he feels guilty at the thought of leading her on and pretending to like her, knowing he's going to kill her. So he's trying really hard to assert some distance because it feels wrong, which shows that he's not pure evil. Like, he's got a conscience, right? And this was part of what made Cole's character so well written in season 3 compared to the rest of the show, because it's his anti-hero-ness, his mix of good and bad, that makes him so easy to root for. Later on, Cole turns the sisters against each other, his plan is working, and he's all set to kill Phoebe. He's got the knife, but he can't bring himself to do it because he likes her too much and he gets her to leave. And there are rumors in the demon community by this point that it's taken Cole too long and that maybe he's not as strong as he appears. And later on, the triad finds out about his betrayal and tries to kill him, but Cole kills them first. Eventually, the others figure out that Cole is Balthazar, and Cole quickly whisks Phoebe away to explain to her what's going on and say goodbye, and she's understandably devastated. Then this demonic bounty hunter attacks them and Cole saves Phoebe, and she realizes that his feelings for her probably are genuine. So even though she has a vanquishing potion, she lets him go and she tells her sisters that she vanquished him because she knows they won't understand, but she can't bring herself to kill him, especially because she knows that it's a bit more complicated than that. Cole tells her, everything else was a lie, but not my feelings for you. It was just a 10 out of 10 love story. This conflict of like the triad saying, we'll kill you if you don't kill her, but then him not being able to, but it was just such good writing. And it is probably one of the only times ever in a show where I actually approve of the whole good girl, bad boy trope because it worked so well for this. This was when the storytelling was at its finest, in my opinion. In episode 13, Cole is basically on the run, but he takes a big risk in coming back to visit Phoebe and check on her, and he's still determined that somehow he'll find a way to make their relationship work, even though Phoebe wants nothing to do with him, but she's clearly hurting over it. He says he's not giving up on her and he's going to somehow, some way prove to her that he's not evil, so he saves her sister's life at one point and just tries to do things to help to show that he's good. In episode 11, I think it is, I don't know which episode it is, but it makes me laugh so much. The girls, they don't like him, okay? He turns up at the Halliwell door carrying flowers to come and see Phoebe. And Prue opens the door and he's just standing there, super casual. He's like, long time no see, and just strolls in, carrying the flowers, like, oh my god. Prue obviously screams and is in shock, and he's like, oh, I just came here to see Phoebe. It's so good. And Phoebe's like, oh my god, Cole, get out. He's just trying so hard to prove himself. He's saying he'll never use his powers again, and he really seems to mean it and believe it as well. They're still being super hostile, but at that point it seemed a bit ridiculous to me. Like, he obviously wasn't trying to hurt them. He had so many opportunities to kill them and he didn't. Now he's in their house with flowers and still isn't trying to kill them. Like, wouldn't he have done it by now? Later on in season 3, Phoebe gets shot and Cole's trying to help, obviously, because he loves her, and Prue's very much like, go away, Cole, we don't need your help, which kind of annoyed me because he has a lot of useful information that could actually save Phoebe's life. Wouldn't he have killed her by now? She's shot on the floor. I think if he wanted to do something about it, he could kill her very easily. But because they need to save Phoebe's life, Cole and Prue go off to do it. And it was very much needed for them to have their own episode together, because I think that made Prue see that even though she didn't particularly like Cole, he wasn't really that bad. And he was determined to save Phoebe's life, even if it meant putting his own at risk. He didn't care. He was truly in love with her and just wanted to prove himself. And all he needed was for someone to believe in him. The show always had a very almost annoying, simplistic view of good versus evil. So Cole was a really refreshing change to show the nuance and that it's not always that simple. Prue at that point is more focused on the greater good and saving the town, whereas Cole is more kind of individualistic, like, forget these townspeople, they're not very nice, let's just save Phoebe because that's our priority. The bad guy says to Cole, see you in hell, and Cole says, been there, done that, which is very funny. And then Cole kills him and finds that quite funny and is laughing about it. But Prue sees and is really hardcore judging him, and she's like, see Cole, you just killed someone when you didn't need to. You'll always be a demon. Okay, I know that I shouldn't be supporting murder, obviously, but I thought it was kind of funny. I don't know. I thought it was iconic. So they save Phoebe, and afterwards Cole's glad Phoebe's okay, and he's like, great, well, I should be going now because Prue doesn't want him there. And Phoebe's like, no, you're not going anywhere, you're staying. And she finally forgives him. Later on in episode 16, Cole says, I wanted it so bad I could believe the lie, where he's talking about how he always dreamed of having this life and romance with Phoebe, even if it was ridiculous and unrealistic and unattainable. He just wanted so badly to believe that he could be good and be with her, which highlighted to me that all he needed was one person really to be by his side and say, yeah, you can do this, I believe in you. In episode 19, Cole wants his powers stripped altogether, which for me was the ultimate romantic gesture. It's him again trying to prove that he doesn't care about the power and the glory and being able to kill people. He just wants to be with Phoebe. And she is like, oh my gosh, would you do that for me? And he's like, oh yeah, I'd do anything for you. I was so proud of him. And I don't know, at that point, even if you had your issues with Cole before, I totally respect that. But at that point, how could you not root for him? Like, he's trying to give up everything he's known to be with her. And he doesn't want to be that person that he was assigned to be at birth, which I find very admirable, you know what I mean? Like, obviously in real life, a murderer trying to be a good person again would raise a lot more eyebrows, but in the fictional, magical fantasy context of this show, I thought it was really good. But in the same episode, right as they're about to get rid of Cole's powers, they realize that they might need to use him as basically a double agent to get more information on the demonic brotherhood. And Cole is their way in because he used to be a very devoted member. And it's so elite and exclusive that there really is no other way of getting in and having that insider information. So they're like, great, we'll use Cole. And understandably, Phoebe is like, what a terrible idea, especially because at this point we understand that when you're born a demon and you kill and you do demonic things, it becomes like a drug and it consumes you and corrupts your soul the more you do it. So sending Cole into an environment like that could do way more harm than good. But Cole is like, no, please, Phoebe, let me do this because I want to do something for the greater good. Even if it means sacrificing myself, I want to do something helpful. Towards the end of the episode, some demon impersonates Cole and they're all convinced that Cole has betrayed them. But Phoebe just knows that Cole wouldn't do that. And he knows that she would never doubt him. Even though all the other girls are like, oh my God, Cole's betrayed us. Phoebe's like, as if. And that to me was such a testament of the strength of their relationship. The reason why Phoebe knew that Cole was being impersonated is because while the other girls were freaking out, Phoebe was trying to talk to the impersonator and they said something about the mausoleum being the safest place in the world. And Phoebe's like, the safest? And they're like, yeah. And she immediately knows that it's an impersonator because earlier in the same episode, Cole had told her that it's the second safest place in the world, but the first safest place in the world is with Phoebe. Unfortunately, the plan was doomed to fail because there were too many demons watching him. And I really felt like the girls, and they do this at many points in the show, but they're treating him like a lamb to the slaughter, and it was never going to work. It was too risky, and he just can't do all of that on his own. He had literally left the Brotherhood earlier with no explanation. He hadn't come back. He'd effectively ghosted them, and I know that they're the villains and everything, but they have genuine friendships with each other, and they were all insulted. They were like, Cole, where did you go? Like, you abandoned us, bro. And he has to try and explain his way out of it. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not believable. They would know that something was up, and he kept making excuses, but no, he'd been gone for too long. And so they trap him before Cole can escape. And later on, Phoebe's really stressed about it, and Prue's like, it's okay, Cole did the right thing, he saved us. And Phoebe's like, yeah, but at what cost did he need to prove that he was good to you guys? Like, to the point of basically a suicide mission? Like, where do we draw the line? And I kind of agreed with her. It wasn't fair on Phoebe because she should be allowed to protect the man she loves without him being offered up as bait. Cole is being forced by the Brotherhood and his old mentor, and they're really getting in his head to kill witches and prove that he's bad. And it does get to him, and he ends up basically killing this witch, but he's very much forced to. It wasn't really of his own doing, but he doesn't explain this properly to Phoebe, so she's devastated, and it nearly shatters their relationship altogether because she thinks he did it of his own free will, and it really wasn't like that. They also had Cole's father's soul, so they were making a bargain with him, like, if you do this and help us, we'll give you your father's soul. So it really wasn't that simple. It wasn't how it looked anyway. Cole really felt down at this point, and he gives up because he felt like Phoebe had not only turned against him, but just kind of rejected him and not believed in him. But later on, he comes back into Phoebe's life when she's turned into a banshee, and he wants to help her. And after that point, when they get back together, Cole is really trying to prove himself time after time. We shift into early season 4, which is kind of Cole's redemption arc turning good guy. Cole helps track down the source and nearly gets killed in the process. After Prue's death, Piper is going on a reckless killing spree, And Cole is, even though there's a bounty on his head and he's at risk of being killed, he's still going out with them to help them because he doesn't trust Piper. He's worried she's going to be reckless and he doesn't want Phoebe losing another sister. Piper gets turned into a fury, so Cole goes out looking for her and gets attacked by like 3 demons in the process because, again, there's a bounty on his head, but he just wants to help. In season 4, Paige has an idea to use Cole as bait, which Phoebe isn't okay with. But then Cole says to Phoebe, let me do it. I don't want to be a coward for you. Even though the punishment he would feel would be him experiencing all the pain that his victims experienced in the past, and it nearly paralyzes him. And through these acts, Cole slowly starts to win the sisters over a little bit more, to the point that he can chill in the house with them and be like a part of the family and them not be making passive aggressive comments constantly. So he definitely came a long way, although I will say that before Prue's death, she never really like accepted him like at all. But in early season 4, you see Cole as part of a family, working with the girls, really trying not to use his powers, and then actually gets stripped of his powers, so he becomes like a mortal human. But he still has endless knowledge about the mythical world, and he uses that knowledge at multiple points to help them with their missions. He is an endless source of information. I can't tell you the number of times that boy got them out of trouble when they needed him. He was there. When Piper was put into this weird hallucinating state in this imaginary hospital because these demons were trying to get her to give up her powers, and then Cole went to try and save her, and he literally nearly died, and he like killed all the bad guys and nearly killed the source himself. Like, Cole was amazing. He starts training Phoebe in martial arts as well. He asks Phoebe to marry him, and honestly, they're just so happy and in love and trying to make it work. He also intends on just returning to normalcy, getting a normal 9-to-5 office job. He is such a valuable asset to the girls. I cannot emphasize that enough, that you really do want him on your side as opposed to, you know, antagonizing him and having him be your enemy. In the brain drain episode, there is a literal demonic chameleon in the house who's camouflaging in to the furniture, right? Watching them. Cole, the minute he arrives, he's like, there's a chameleon in the house. And everyone's like, what do you mean? He's like, nope, someone's in the house. If it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have known they were being under surveillance 24/7. In season 4, episode 1, Charmed Again, part 1, he goes with Piper to help save Paige, their new half-sister. In the episode A Page from the Past, he goes to help save Paige from this burning car that's about to explode. My point is, the reason I'm mentioning all these things, he did this, he did that, is because he really had redeemed himself, and we had a very excellently written arc from bad guy to redeemed mortal. It was a complete character development, finalized arc, and it worked really well. But unfortunately, good things don't last forever. In season 4, this is when things really go to shit. Hence my next chapter, Evil Cole. Cole loves Phoebe so much that he makes a deal with the seer to basically ensure that her and her sisters won't die. He had no idea that this would mean that he would get possessed by the source. Cole was essentially possessed, and he's trying to fight this evil that's growing inside him, but it's taking over his body. His eyes at one point even go fully black. And so he starts going evil and manipulative and becoming like this emotionally abusive husband, in the way that he's trying to isolate Phoebe from her family and doing things to try and convince her into moving out with him. He even gaslights Paige when she starts having suspicions. We really didn't need Cole reverting back to the way he was before. Been there, done that, you know? We've seen it already. None of the stuff he did as the source counts, okay? I want to emphasize this. He was possessed. He was not in his right mind. They are explicitly stated to be very different entities, okay? So we shouldn't be calling them the same thing, because they're not. Paige likes Cole and then suddenly doesn't like him, and she's picking up on these red flags, and she's noticing that shift in him, like, where is he getting this money from and this new car? And okay, no one believes her, but I guess because she hadn't known him as long, she's more aware of this change in him. Cole planned to use Phoebe's love for him to turn her evil and ultimately shatter the power of 3, and I just hated this whole storyline. I really did. Phoebe was also being manipulated to go along with this by the unborn demonic baby in her womb, and maybe some of it was her own free will as well, but it's really ambiguous. It's not that clear. But I would have thought, considering she wasn't in her right mind either, that the sisters would have had even more compassion for Cole for being possessed and therefore not really having free will. Or maybe that he was indeed an innocent who was worth saving. Why can they find no fault in Phoebe, but then find fault in Cole when essentially both characters were being manipulated? And I can't even count the number of times that the girls get possessed by a banshee or some kind of evil creature or a succubus or a hag, and the girls have to go and save their sister. They don't blame their sister and get angry at them because they understand that they've been possessed. We had Phoebe as Lulu, Coyote Piper. We had the Freaky Phoebe episode. We had Bite Me. We had that episode where Prue was split into 3 different Prues. It's very normal and expected for people to get possessed and to no longer be behaving like themselves. But instead, the girls are all angry at Cole and turn against him. So in this show, they tend to pick and choose when the possession is the victim's fault and when it's not, which is obviously a huge hole and a huge flaw in the storytelling. But apparently for the girls, it's the final straw, so they vanquish Cole to the wastelands rather than trying to save him and maybe like separate him from the source. Cole, who's now a human in the wasteland, is asking for Phoebe's help because it's awful in there and she doesn't want to help him. I understand that Phoebe was scared of getting involved with him or scared of going evil again, but it was just so cruel for her to not help him considering how dire the situation was. It was like this awful demonic limbo. Would she really have wanted to leave him there to suffer for all eternity? And that situation itself was not explained properly, that he was possessed, even though he could have surely found a way to explain that to her. In season 4, they make it seem like he was possessed, but then in season 5, they make out like he wasn't. Which gets me into the next phase of Cole's development, loser Stalker Cole. When Cole returns, the narrative acts as if the seer or the source never tricked Cole, never possessed him, and as if what he did was of his own free will and he was just this evil husband. It happens many times where Cole is blamed for things he did when he was under the influence of something or someone else, like the siren, for example, or the source, or Barbas. But eventually, when Cole does return from the wasteland, Phoebe doesn't want to take him back, even though he's trying to prove to her that he is indeed good. He saves her from a bullet, he saves her when she turns into a mermaid, but even though she acknowledges that she'll always love him, she just doesn't trust him and doesn't think they were meant to be. Later on, there's this fairy tale episode where this evil witch is manipulating the girls, but Phoebe is convinced that somehow Cole is behind it all. She obviously didn't save him from the wasteland, so he needed to save himself, but she's annoyed at him for that. She tells him to leave, but then later on, when Phoebe needs saving, the girls tell him to come back. She spends that entire episode, the fairy tale one, putting herself in danger because she's convinced that Cole is the one behind it, even though it's not. So then, when she's turned into a pumpkin, Cole has to come and save her from being smashed into smithereens. But then she's annoyed at him for that as well, even though he's just trying to help. Cole vanquished Barbas, who everyone knows is a villain, but then Phoebe's giving him this dirty look, like he did the wrong thing, even though he's doing the right thing. The whole family completely rejects him and ostracizes him. And it's just cruel. Did they do that to Paige when she became a vampire and victim blame her? No. Did they get all mad at Piper when she was a fury, or at Phoebe when she was a banshee? No. And so often Cole is made into this loser stalker figure who just can't take no for an answer. But I just found it incredibly sad. Phoebe even says to him in the mermaid episode that what he's doing is like beyond stalking. But because of his desperation to save Phoebe and be there for her, it really reduces his character and makes him appear pathetic. And I don't like that for him. The episode with the siren never fails to just devastate me because he materializes into the kitchen because he's trying to educate them on the siren, help them with it. It's a real issue. And then Phoebe says, Cole, maybe you should leave. And Piper says, we've got enough demons to deal with around here. And he just looks so hurt. And it just kills me. All he does when he comes back from the wasteland is try to prove that he can be good, but everyone keeps telling him that he can never change and that he's bad. Like, I could understand the whole demonic pregnancy thing traumatizing you. I could understand Cole being possessed even being so traumatizing that you just can't be in the same room as him anymore because it's just too upsetting and brings up too many bad memories. However, discrediting everything good he does, or saying that he's evil, or just being really bitter about him all the time, that's madness. But unfortunately, the show really commits to this whole Stalker Cole thing to the point that he's showing up at Phoebe's work, trying to make her love him, making her life a misery, and just really kind of hassling her, like annoying her. And it's just so sad. Cole, it should never have come to that point. After many months of loneliness and Phoebe's continued rejections, Cole starts going insane and wanting to kill himself. So then he starts going ballistic, killing people without remorse, and turning into this train wreck of a character. He tries to provoke the Charmed Ones into killing him because he's so overwhelmed by the weight of his new magical powers, and they don't want to because they want to kill him on their own terms. He's literally being driven mad by all this power inside him, but they're not allowing him to just die. I mean, it's just unforgivable, really. Like, this was a man that you loved and married. But then we go back again to evil abuser Cole. Cole's obsession with Phoebe consumes him to the point that he is straight up villain. He goes as far as to stir up legal difficulties for the manor so they might try and give it up. His plan is to try and get the nexus underneath the manor to use its power to turn Phoebe evil so they can be together in some kind of alternate reality. And he wants to reorganize the underworld under his leadership and take control of the whole city, and it's like evil mastermind times 100. He doesn't care if it involves hurting her sisters in the process. He just wants to get to Phoebe. It's like this dark obsession. So Piper and Paige make this vanquishing potion which falls into Phoebe's hands, and Cole is convinced that Phoebe would never throw it, but Phoebe does throw it without hesitation, without any doubts or sorrow, and so Cole ultimately dies. And it's just like the worst thing ever. There's this idea in season 7, the aftermath, that Cole is basically this ghost always watching over Phoebe, and that he wants her to believe in love again. And that's why he brought the man she eventually marries, Coop, into her life. I wish that had been left out. Do you want him redeemed or not? What even is this? So now he just wants her to be happy, even if it's not with him? That's very selfless considering what he was doing earlier. So it's like saying, hey, I never actually left because I'm kind of in the afterlife watching over her. And also Phoebe actually moving on and believing in love again. It wasn't really of her own doing, of her own autonomy, because I orchestrated a way to make it happen, and it's just incredibly tacky and frankly disrespectful. And I understand the actor needed to leave the show and he wasn't really meant to stay on that long, but like, why do they keep flip-flopping with his character arc? It's infuriating. And the final thing I want to talk about is Cole's bad influence on Phoebe and how he kind of made her a worse person. Now, this part I wouldn't actually argue was bad writing, but I thought it was worth sharing. Very early on, we see that Cole and Phoebe's dynamic is almost codependent in a sense that she's very overly attached to him, and it does get kind of annoying for people because it makes her selfish. For instance, in the episode Power Outage, the girls are discussing Balthazar because they know that he wants to kill them, and it's a very important conversation, but Phoebe is not paying attention because she's wondering why Cole is running 40 minutes late. Later on, Phoebe's leaving class and bumps into Cole, and despite the fact that he's been kind of wish-washy, he asks her out for dinner, and she says yes, even though she needs to help Piper handle a meeting. She's like, it's fine, Piper will get over it. She basically takes advantage of Piper's meek nature, saying it's cool, Piper can handle the responsibility. I know she'll be too scared to properly tell me off, even though she could just put Cole on hold for a few more days. Keep in mind, at this point, like, she doesn't know him that well. You're not married. And I don't like how she made Prue apologize for suspecting Cole of being a demon, because this is kind of their life. They have to be cautious. And it was so odd, this double standard, because she was always suspicious of everyone else's partners and Paige's boyfriend, but then no one was allowed to pass any kind of judgment on Cole. Phoebe states, "Forgive Prue, she's crazy and isn't thinking straight." Like, why would Prue be crazy for thinking that Cole was a demon? It seems like a perfectly valid suspicion. So in season 1, when Prue says that Phoebe isn't very good at predicting the future and she lacks forethought and she's too impulsive and she's kind of irresponsible, she was right. Phoebe often doesn't take responsibility. She never really takes responsibility for how she fake vanquished Cole, which puts the girls in a dangerous situation because she's pretended to vanquish him but actually hasn't. So the girls are in this false sense of security thinking he's dead when he's not. So at multiple points she is choosing him over her own sisters. And she ultimately contributes to Prue's death because she was so busy trying to help Cole and find out what he was doing that she wasn't there with Prue because she was with Cole in the underworld. So when Piper's shot and then they're attacked and Prue dies. In the season 4 opener, she's very concerned about the fact that Cole can't be there with her for Piper's funeral, whilst ignoring that there's a massive bounty on Cole's head, so he could easily get attacked at the funeral and kind of ruin the funeral, which is later what happens. All these people ruin the funeral by trying to attack Cole, and ultimately it's because he shouldn't have been there, and Phoebe knew it. The thing that's pissed me off the most was in the episode Saving Private Leo, and she's annoyed at Piper simply because Piper wants her to stay at home and help her fight this evil force, but Phoebe really wants to go with her husband Cole to this office party. These ghosts, demons, whatever they're dealing with are serious. They literally nearly killed Leo, and she's acting like, you girls can handle it for me just for tonight. You don't need all 3 of us for this. Just for this stupid office party. And then that whole debate comes in later in season 4 of her wanting her own place with Cole. And earlier she'd shamed Piper for wanting to leave, but now when she wants to leave, apparently it's okay. Even though, no matter what way you look at it, it's not as safe to have moved out because you're not with the girls. So if something bad happens, you're not there. She had basically compelled Paige to move into the manor with them, but now because she wants to move out, apparently it's okay. And she's making it about this whole husband versus sisters debate, which it never really was supposed to be about. It's just that she's being irresponsible. I didn't realize how selfish Phoebe could be until I rewatched certain scenes, like in season 4. Phoebe is working on her laptop in the kitchen and she's trying to tell everybody to shut up and be quiet. And that was ridiculous to me. You're in the kitchen, Piper's making pancakes, you've got your own bedroom, you've got a whole house. Like, why are you doing important work in the kitchen? And it's a communal area. It's not everyone's job to be quiet for you. And they make her entire arc after a while all about Cole. He takes up a lot of screen time and it's just about her finding love after Cole and her getting over heartbreak and Cole. And it does get quite annoying. In season 1, with the introduction of the Woogie, we see that she is different compared to the other sisters. And she acknowledges as much that she is more susceptible to evil. We also see in this flashback episode of their past lives that she was evil in a past life and enjoyed the power of hurting others, and she even had an evil lover who looked a bit like Cole that seduced her into evil. She says, yeah, I can go both ways, good or bad, kind of freaky. Into this future life we see that she's actually committed murder. Phoebe is out of all the sisters the one that's proven to be the most potentially dangerous. And maybe that's why she was so triggered by Cole, because she could see herself in him. This fear of being pulled back to the dark side explains why Phoebe gets so hung up on Cole's morality, because it also feels personal to her. The risk of seeing him as anything other than evil was too much of a threat for her, and I wish they had explored this more rather than writing it off so surface level. Why was it that she was so scared of Cole and so willing to abandon him? What was it really triggering within her? Why is she so scared of becoming evil again and him being a bad influence on her? Is it because a part of her enjoys it? And the way it was written, her relationship with Cole and questioning if he's evil or good was so messy and confusing. It's such a joke. In Long Live the Queen, she seems to be doing better at understanding that there's a difference between the source and Cole. She's understanding that his human side is the man that she loves. But then in the season 5 premiere and her as a mermaid, she's so cut up about what happened and acting like their entire relationship was a lie and they were never meant to be. It was a complete retcon. It was very jarring. In the season 5 premiere, Cole turns her back from being a mermaid and she admits that she still loves him and will always love him even though it's hurtful. But then suddenly she's going back to hating him and pinning everything on him, assuming he's trying to mess with them. But I'm just so annoyed about that, because instead of all that stupid shit, we could have focused more on the concept of dark Phoebe. And like when Barbas comes back for the second time, we see that Phoebe's greatest fear is that she's inherently evil. Like, why was this not explored more? This would explain so much. So here's my overall thoughts on Cole's character. He was such a valuable asset for the sisters, but it felt like they were using him whenever it was convenient for them and then disregarding him whenever. And that they truly didn't really care about helping him be good. Like, he could just kind of do whatever he wanted. They kept reminding him of his dark past to discourage him, and ultimately it led to a self-fulfilling prophecy because he had no support system. I don't like that the writers totally flip-flopped with his character from episode to episode. One minute he's good, then he's evil. He's suicidal because he thinks Phoebe doesn't want him, and the next minute he's high off the glory of his powers. Piper literally says, Paige, it's our compassion, not our powers, that separates us from the bad guys. It's so ironic that she says that in the same episode where she's shunning Cole and being mean to him. They're claiming to be such good people, but it's like, then they're judging him for something he can't change, which is how he was born. Why not judge him by his actions now in the present? And we know that he has good in him. In All Halliwell's Eve in season 3, he stopped the Grimlocks from harming a child. There was no incentive for him to do that. No one was watching. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He just did it because. I don't like the implication of the story that it's in his blood, it's in his DNA, he can't change it. I just think that's a really harmful concept. Brad Kern, who was the showrunner, literally said, as much as Cole wanted to conquer his evil side, we knew the fun would be in the conflict of seeing him try. In my mind, that was the tragic love. Phoebe, the epitome of love, tried to overcome that evil, but it was baked into his DNA. Ultimately, she had to move on and he had to die. I don't know, man. I just don't think I would have written it that way personally. And the writers ruined what was already a perfectly good, finalized redemption arc from villain to lover. He risked everything for Phoebe in season 3, including his whole very complicated, very deep relationship with the Brotherhood, and he had to find a way to get out of it. He would have had eternal glory for killing the Charmed Ones, but instead he sacrificed it because he fell in love with Phoebe. I believe that he was done wrong by the writers, and it was potentially the biggest mistake the show ever made. He could have been used as a kind of vehicle for the writers to show us a more nuanced understanding of what it truly means to be good and evil, and if there's maybe more of a grey area. And I'm really disappointed that they didn't do that. But let me know in the comments what you think, and also if you want to see more content from me, if you love my videos, you can become a member of my Patreon for as little as $2 a month. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having an amazing November, and I will see you for the next video.